I don't have a PowerPoint. Thank you, Bitange. Hello, my name is Nathan Cook, and I'm going to try very hard to speak slowly because I'm really excited to be here, and when I get excited, I speak really fast. I've made some notes to help slow me down. So I'm part of a company called Sanergy, and we operate in Mukuru, Kwajenga. We make sanitation affordable, accessible, and available for everyone. So I'll try to speak to some of the things that Bitange was talking to. First of all, how Sanji works. We're trying to build a dense network of toilets in the slum areas. We sell them to, franchise them to entrepreneurs who run them as a business, because if you haven't been into the slum, people often don't have toilets at their home, so they have to pay per use. And then we come back and we collect the waste, and then we convert it into fertilizer, and eventually we plan on converting that into electricity as well. So we are a social enterprise. It is a for-profit. But taking back a little bit like to where Sanergy started, we started in a university in the US, and it was just writing. Like, someone wrote a white paper to help promote their business plan, and then people said, oh, you have this idea, but like, prove it to me. Well, they said, we'll prove it to you if you give us some money. They didn't give us a lot of money, but they gave us enough to build one toilet. From that one toilet, they said, we told them, see, we can build a toilet. And then some more people said, this is interesting. Now, can you build multiple toilets? So we said, well, sure, we can build multiple toilets. Give us some more money. They gave us some more money, and we were able to build multiple toilets. And they said, great, you can build multiple toilets. Now, like, can you convert waste into fertilizer? We said, guess what? We can do that. We just need a little more money. And eventually, we'll want to turn that waste into electricity, and we will be asking for, guess what? Yeah, a little more money. So for the banks in the room, more money, please. But again, it started off just as an idea. And sort of trying to go to some of the other things that Bitange was talking about, learning and opportunity. You know, we started this in the US. I actually met my co-founders while they were doing their MBAs, and I was actually teaching at the school. And I went to India, and I went all up and down north, down to the south of India, talking to people doing things very similar to what we wanted to do. So we want to build these toilets, and we want to convert waste into something useful. So I went to different companies and organizations in India who were working with the materials that we wanted to work with, and I learned from them. And then I went to different places that were doing sanitation in India, and I learned from them. And then we brought that knowledge here to Kenya. We chose Kenya because, well, it's actually pretty competitive in India to get into the sanitation business. There's still a lot of people in India who don't have sanitation, but the market is pretty saturated. There was a great opportunity here to provide people sanitation, but also provide people with fertilizer. As Bitange said, you know, a lot of things are imported here in Kenya. So we said, you know, including chemical fertilizers that come all the way from China. So we said, we can take this waste, we can turn it into something valuable, and we can sell it right here in Kenya. So we've been around for about 3 years now. We've created about 400 jobs. That's about 170 employees at Sanergy. Only about 5 to 10% of those at most are expats. The rest are local. A majority of them are actually from the Mukuru Kwajenga area. That's about almost 200 entrepreneurs who own and franchise the toilets from us. And that's about 100 employees that they employ. That math, if you go back and look at it, doesn't add up, because I'm just giving you rough numbers. I don't know the exact thing. But it's about 400 jobs. To date, we've removed over 2,000 tons of waste from the community, and we have on average about 15,000 users a day of the toilets. But nothing we're doing is new. The only thing that's new about it is putting the system together. We didn't create the technology to build toilets. That already existed. We learned from somebody else, and we brought it here. We didn't create the technology to convert waste into fertilizer. I mean, composting has existed for a long time. We simply applied it to human waste. We did purchase the first of its kind machine that can process about 15 tons of waste into fertilizer in 24 hours. And so it's the first of its kind, not just in Nairobi, in Kenya, but in Africa. And that's something that we like to talk about now as our commitment, to being here. We've had a lot of resistance sometimes from people about are you going to be around? And this is saying, yes, we're going to be around. This is a big capital investment. We believe in this. Again, some of the things that Bitange was talking about, creating local business people. So we franchise our toilets to people in the community. So we provide them with a brand name it's called Fresh Life, so that when people see that brand on the side of that toilet, they know that they're going to get a clean, hygienic experience at that toilet. We also provide them with business support. So we monitor the users per day and help people who help our franchisees succeed. We see, oh, you only have 10 people using your toilet per day. That's not a successful business. And we work various interventions to help them succeed. Because when they succeed, we succeed. Also, in terms of creating jobs, again, back to the people who work with us in Mukuru, some of these guys started out 3 years ago with us just, as casual laborers. And we were able to provide them for the first time ever with a contract job, with healthcare, with retirement, and with vacation. And that's fantastic that we can do that for them. But on top of that, since they've been with us some of these guys have been with us for a long time, they've moved up from just being a casual laborer who was mixing concrete, now to they're the managers of other people. So as the company grows, the people within us grow too. And that's a fantastic thing to see. And it makes me really, really proud. I think of people like John Okwamba, that's his Facebook name, Cliff de la Cliff. I forget his last name. But watching these people grow with us has been great, and I just can't wait to see them continue to grow with us. Another thing I want to talk about is production cost. So it's been really difficult to produce things here in Kenya sometimes. And one of the things we've been trying to do is we produce the toilets locally. It's prefabricated materials that are that we make at our main manufacturing site. We make those toilets, and then we assemble it on site where it eventually ends up. And there's all sorts of different things that people want to talk about in terms of how to improve production. And I know something pretty big here at iHub is maybe 3D printing and things like that. And 3D printing is great, but what our guys really need is a table saw. And it's really hard to get a high-quality table saw in Nairobi, Kenya. And it's not just our guys at the site that need a table saw. It's the guys that out on Gong Road. Because I've seen, in fact, we hired one of our carpenters. We got him from one of the furniture guys at Gong Road because he was so good. He can cut a straight line down a 2-meter board, no problem, with his hand. But it takes him 5-10 minutes. If he had a table saw, he could do that in 30 seconds. In fact, he could do a lot of those, a lot more in a lot less time. And same thing for all those guys on Gong Road is they don't necessarily need the most advanced tools. They just need slightly better tools than what they already have. And again, to me, that's a table saw. They're cutting wood, so give them a tool to cut wood. I'm not saying that they're not capable of doing 3D printing, but that's a different person who's capable of doing 3D printing. You need to maybe go to school or have a lot of free time, and you need a computer. Then you need a 3D printer to go do that. The guys on Gong Road, they already know how to make great beds. Well, they can make one bed that all the parts work together, but they can't make multiple beds that multiple parts work together. And if they had some of the tools to do that, I think they could do a much better job. And similarly for us, like, we're just looking for, it's these simple tools that can make a big difference. Like, innovation happens in many places, from 3D printing and healthcare apps, but it can also make a big difference in some of the smallest places, like providing people with the simple tools to take their craftsmanship from like level 2 to level 3 or 4 or 5. That's basically what I had to say. So you can find me afterwards if you want to talk about any of the things I've talked about. Thank you.
I love English when he uses the word waste. You know, it's actually shit. Amazing. You see how none of us thought that we can create 400 jobs. 400 jobs. People who are proud working. Imagine if we have 20 Nathans, one in Madare, one in Kibera, one in whatever, you would see how many people we can create. We can create employment. Let's not continue saying serikali, government, whatnot. We have the potential. Alice, you can say something. She works out of Kariobangi, also a social enterprise. I would expound on this social enterprise business. You can come, Karibu.
Good morning, or is it afternoon? So my name is Alice. I work for a social enterprise here in Kenya, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. So we've talked a lot today about building an entrepreneurial culture in Kenya. And so I wanted to present an idea that I've been working on with a good friend of mine, and it's called AM Cafe. It's also a social enterprise, and it seeks to do two things. So the first is to create a space where women entrepreneurs, leaders, activists can come together and share ideas, network, because there are so few spaces in Kenya for women. The second is to provide a program for young, marginalized women to build their entrepreneurial capacity and potential, while also growing their leadership and community mobilization skills. So what we found in Kenya is that young women between the ages of 19 and 29, are far less likely to succeed in their entrepreneurial venture than their male counterparts. So what we want to do is to sort of plant the seeds to build a culture that supports women entrepreneurs. So this is it's a new venture, it's a new project, and so we're still working through the details, but if you're interested or have some good ideas, please come and find me after. Thank you.
Actually, we have had these findings that women below 29 don't actually succeed. When I do research in social enterprise, we attributed that to childbearing period, but I think we can destroy that by joining Alice. I want to introduce Dr. Gaduru with his friend here. And I still want to pronounce his name, but that would give a taste everybody to do that. Daktari. These ones want to now go big in a bigger way.
Thank you. I'm Jumbo. Good morning. So these are the entrepreneurs, huh? Asante sana Daktari. I have been asked to say a few things, and it's rather off the cuff, but I will try to structure something. I am the managing director of a startup called Kipia. And Kipia doesn't stand for anything. It's not an acronym, but it's just new or innovative. I think we all want to use the word innovative, maybe overuse it, but I want to tell you three things. Number one, what does Kipia do? Number two, why should you be involved in oil, gas, and mining? And number 3, why must every entrepreneur focus on profit? Can you all see that? HSE. What does that stand for? Anybody? Sorry? House 4.6, huh? We'll come back to this. NR, what does that stand for? Non-refundable, huh? Nairobi, nice. I've dropped the acronym there. So, HSE stands for Health, Safety, and Environment. This is the world of oil, gas, and mining. So when we speak a different language. So when you guys talk of technology, we also talk of technology, but we are asking, how can I drill a well faster? So it's a completely different realm. So, keep here. We always, I repeat, start our meetings by talking about safety, health, and environment. It is not a choice. It's mandatory. Because in order for us to eventually be profitable, we must think about individual safety, individual health, and the environment. So let me ask, any of you tell me, where is the emergency exit in this building? Someone is looking outside the window, huh? I'm sure there's one. I presume it's somewhere to one side of the lifts and straight down the stairs. But we would want, as a business, to understand, how do I get out of here if there's a problem? And I'm not saying there'll be a problem, but if I am on a drilling rig and I'm drilling for a hydrocarbon is flammable, right? I need to know how to evacuate from that rig if something went wrong. So KIPIA starts with safety. KIPIA, what is our business? Simply put, we sell knowledge. We are the bridge between the drilling businesses and the national community. The drilling businesses want to understand something about you. You want to understand something about the drilling businesses, and we bridge that gap. Now, KIPIA was founded in September 2012. It was a group of us, all engineers, seated in Houston, supplying equipment for drilling into East Africa. And we said to ourselves, we understand the process. Personally, I've been working in it for 14 years. Why can't I be the one with a team to supply those products, those people, the training directly? So we started up 4 business lines. We relocated back to Nairobi. And we started as 3 people. And almost 2 years down the road, we had 25 engineers. And we are profitable. We were profitable 6 months into the business. We have 4 business lines. One of them is research. We do a lot of research, predominantly for international companies who want to understand what are the plays. And when I say plays, it's an industry terminology. What are the areas where we can find minerals? What are the areas where we can find oil and gas? The second thing we do is training. So we train a lot of professionals on technical issues, on non-technical issues about those plays. The third thing that we do is we provide outsourced engineers. We're very proud that we are the outsourcing company for engineers for the world's biggest oil service company called Schlumberger, and we provide those engineers here in Kenya. So right now, my guys are in Turkana, they're in Wajir, they're in Magadi, they're in Mombasa. We have another team in Ethiopia, in the Ogaden Basin, in the South Omo Basin. We have a team in Tanzania. So we provide the engineers. Why? We saw a gap. When the expatriates come from the US, there's a rotation. It's a 4-week rotation. They need to go back home. They work for 4 weeks in Turkana, and then they need to fly back home for 4 weeks, and then come back again for 4 weeks. But does the drilling stop during that gap? No. So who takes the position? Kipia. We supply that engineer who will keep that operation running. And then the fourth thing that we do is technology. We develop technology for the business. And this is one of the reasons why I'm here, because we have a need. We have a need to partner with yourselves to develop technology for enterprises in the business of oil and gas. NR stands for natural resources. I am convinced that this country will be driven by natural resources going forward. And I know that's a little bit provocative, but when I ask what are the top 10 companies in terms of market capitalization globally, I'm sure you will list them. You will list Apple, you will list Microsoft, you will list Google, but half of the companies are oil, gas, and mining companies. ExxonMobil, PetroChina, BHP Billiton, and the list goes on. So it is equally important for you to bridge between your technology and ours, because we believe this country going forward is going to be driven, again, by the natural resources. And I give you a case in point. It's not just talking. You've heard of base titanium? How much in titanium dioxide will they export this year? In money, $250 million of titanium dioxide. What were the exports of coffee in Kenya last year, the full year? 220 million. So in the first year of exports, one relatively small company will exceed the total exports of coffee last year. So this industry is taking over. Then the question is, how many of you are involved? What percentage of that $250 million has come to you? So again, it's about natural resources. It's about how can we bridge into enterprises. And I know some of you are asking, so what can I do? So I give you a couple of examples. Feeding on what Daktari said. Importation, for example. Majority of the products we use are imported. And when they're imported, they need to go to site, a place called Lokicha in Turkana. The truck is in Mombasa. It's loaded with a container. That truck has a satellite device that tracks the truck to Lokicha. But my interest is not the truck. My interest is the drilling tool in the back of the truck. How do I track that drilling tool? Because that truck can carry more than one tool. But I'm interested in that tool that if my production stops one day, my client will not be too happy. But it's impossible for me today to track one piece of item on the back of a truck here in Kenya. But I'm pretty sure that I can partner with you to find a solution that can track it, and it would appear on my mobile phone in real time that this is where my tool is. Second problem I have, people. We have lots of engineers all over East Africa. We need to track where those engineers are. What is their validity of their visas? Do they have yellow fever certification? When do they need to go on rotation? What are their specific needs? Do they need an air ticket to come back to Nairobi or to fly back home? We are unable to track all that. We do it in a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet. So it becomes a huge exercise to track people. So we need today a solution from you, how you can help our business and eventually the businesses like Talo that own the license to track people and to track products. In the end, we make no qualms about it. It's about profit. So my interest here, I said, is to learn from other entrepreneurs, but also it's to share with you what is going on in the country. The real business for us is not in Nairobi. It's not consumer driven. The real business for us is in Turukana, and there is big business. And the real business is finding solutions for businesses that have a real need. I would like to encourage you as entrepreneurs to think about profit. If you're not focused on how your business can be profitable, you will not survive. Now, Kipia is only just over a year and a half. Too early for us to say where this is going, but today we are growing profitably. Thank you for your time.
We have one more speaker. I want two of you to try this. His name is Dr. Shiygyhan. How do you pronounce that? Shangwan. Shayan.
Any more?
Any?
Actually, Xian.
Oh, Xian.
The G is silent.
Dr. Xian.
The second test is, where is the name from? Where am I from?
Wait, the second name is Navti. Nafti. Yeah. If you get it right, I'll give you money. Dr. Xian Nafti, let him tell us.
Is the right word. And I guess the other question is, where am I from? That's the question. And nobody that, no, not Teddy. Anybody? Anyone can guess? Spelling Shiygyhan. He's Googling it, right? So anybody, any guess? No one knows, right? That's $50. Okay. Money motivates, $50. South Africa, Ghana, Congo. Okay, done. I'm from Cameroon, so no one got it. So no one got that. So by the way, thanks so much, Dr. Ndemo, for having me. I noticed that there are a lot of young people in the room. So what I'll do two things. I'll start by telling my story, in case it helps some of you, and then I'll talk about what I do, because we're all Africans. So I was born in Cameroon, and I did most of my education in Cameroon. Then I was fortunate to get a scholarship. So at the time, the government had a scholarship. And the purpose was that those who were granted these scholarships will come back. That was the goal, right? So there was, I think there was actually a contract that we signed with the government. But then, as things happened, there was the economic crisis. So the government could not afford to absorb those of us whom they had educated. So they were very happy for those of us who were out there to figure out our way in the world, right? Which is kind of a contradiction. So I ended up in the UK, and I was fortunate to have a number of scholarships, and I ended up doing a PhD in analytics. And when I did that, I always had at the back of my mind that I was going to come back to Africa, right? But the question is, here I am doing this complex analytics, which is around how do you manufacture things like aircraft? So how do you do simulation? So you don't have to build models, right? So you can do a lot of it on the computer, save money, before you get to designing models and things like that. Fascinating stuff. But I couldn't see the relevance, right, in Africa, which is where I hoped I was going to end up. So I left and joined IBM and spent about 14 years in total in IBM. And I was very fortunate as well, because it's a big company, has about 400,000 employees. Now, one of the advice in terms of anyone found themselves in those sort of situations, I would say take advantage of it and grow. So one of the fortunate things that happened to me was that I was very technical, but at some point, IBM decided that they were going to expand into Africa. And so they were looking for people who could be part of that process. And I got talking to the right people by chance. Actually, it wasn't by chance, but I got talking to the right people, and I found myself leading IBM's Africa expansion project. So I was very interested in your talk, because IBM being an enterprise company, that project was about identifying enterprise opportunities across the continent. So when you come to a country like Kenya, where are the opportunities in government? Where are the opportunities in natural resources? Where are the opportunities in telecommunications, in financial services? So that's what I did. And I came here and we interviewed a lot of organizations to try and get a view of what was happening locally. And I did that across a number of other African countries. The challenge that I realized was that I was one of many people that were not Africans. And I think it was around that time that I realized that actually I was going to have to do something profound. In other words, I had a responsibility to share my knowledge with the likes of yourself. And that's why it gives me a lot of pleasure to be here, because we have a lot of understanding. When you work in organizations like IBM, you have a great level of understanding of what's happening in not just Africa, but other parts of the world. And you have the privilege of having met a number of people who have shared their insights and shared their challenges like you have just done. So the question is, how do we turn that into action? So I'm part of an organization called Africa 2.0. You've got to talk to that guy. So Teddy is the leader of Africa 2.0. And we have a very simple objective. How do we transform hope into action, right? Very action-oriented. And we believe that we are the ones that we've been waiting for. So that hope or that transformation is going to come from us. Very simple. So if you're interested in that, please speak to Teddy, right? So that's my sales speech for you, right? So let me talk about what we're now doing. So I went back after the Africa opportunity to the UK, where I led the cloud business for IBM in Europe for 2 years. And I figured out that cloud or this technology was very important for Africa. But a number of things happened. I also thought that maybe now was a time for me to take a step back and start doing work for Africa and for the continent as a whole. And when I tried to think about where the best place to start would be, I thought I had to start with skills. I had to start with trying to figure out how we grow a foundation which is based on knowledge, because I think the opportunity that Africa has is around the knowledge economy. So when you look at the US and you think of where the billion-dollar companies are emerging from, it's the likes of the Twitters, the Facebooks, right? The Googles. And what does it take to build those companies? It takes knowledge, right? The resources are relatively inexpensive. And so my view was, how can I transform this understanding that I have of the enterprise and enable guys like you in this room to create innovative solutions? The other point to remember is that companies like IBM, generally speaking, don't grow organically. They grow through acquisitions. So in the next few years, if IBM and companies like that are going to be big in Africa, they're going to have to partner or acquire companies in Africa. So who's going to build those companies? We have to build them, right? And public sector is quite important. So we need to figure out a way of engaging with the public sector as well. So to me, it was very clear. So we set up, so I reached out to a very trusted lady that I know. She's African-American, but she was the CTO of IBM in Nairobi. And I know she shared the same passion I had for education and capacity building. So we set up a company called Tech Equity. And the reason we chose that name is actually interesting. People talk about private equity, and we fundamentally believe that technology was the value creation engine, right? So let's get the boards of these companies, the CEOs of these companies, recognizing that on their board, they need technical people, because that's what's going to enable them to create tremendous value for their shareholders. So Tech Equity is a very simple concept. I'm here this week. I was invited by the Africa Leadership Center to talk about technology. I ended up talking about social learning and innovation, right? And I met the Dean of Strathmore, and we had a conversation around how can we reach out to their network of alumni, businessmen, and create a forum where we can talk about technology and the role that technology plays in value creation. And the reason I'm also here is I've been talking to Jessica and a few others about how do we enable all of you in this room who understand how to create great solutions, how to develop applications, to understand what it takes to deploy those applications within an enterprise. Because when you're talking about enterprise IT, it's slightly different, right? You're thinking about things like enterprise risk management. You might think of it as a simple application, but the consequences are this. What happens if that transaction gets lost? It might be a simple one transaction, but that transaction might be $1 million, right? So you need to think beyond, this is just a simple app, right? This is a business. And the consequences from a risk perspective could be profound. So what we've done is essentially create a framework through which we want to share that knowledge among business people. So it's about bridging the gap between IT and the business. So I'll leave it there. And again, if you have any questions, I'll be around to speak to you. Thank you.